also in C#, tell it that we're not inheriting from content page, that we're inheriting from base content page. So let's fix that. Base content page, and this is our detail view model. There we go. So now that's happy. And then we have to pass that into our base view model. So let's make sure that happens properly. When JetBrains Rider, the IDE I'm using, created this page for me, when I just said file new over here, or I guess add, add new content page, it assumed I wanted the namespace to be hello-maui.pages. But if we look back here at our C# implementation, it was just hello Maui. So that's what we're missing here. That's why this initialize component method is saying, hey, I have no idea what I'm initializing. This method, initialize component, when this runs, that's what inflates this XAML. This is what turns this XAML into C# so that it can be consumed by .NET MAUI and displayed on the screen. So the fact that this is saying, I have no idea, I don't see a method called initialize component because it should exist in another partial class, speaking of partial classes from our last video. And that's just because we have a different namespace. Look at that. So namespace hello Maui fixes everything. And that is because here our class name is hello Maui.details page. So this was hello Maui.pages for the namespace. Whoops. There we go. So I could have also changed the namespace here in XAML by saying hello Maui.pages, and everything's green and happy. But that breaks all the previous code that we had that didn't use that namespace. So what we'll do going forward is we're just going to match the C#. But good bug to hit because it's going to be a common one you'll experience in XAML. And now we know how to fix it. Okay, so how do we implement this shell back button behavior first? Well, inside of our content page, we can reference shell by saying shell dot, actually, that's not the right spot. Inside the content page here. If we did it down there, that would be inside the content page's content. So here, shell back button behavior, and then we can say that the back button behavior we know has a property called text override, and we want that to be list. So that's how we can write this code, but we only wanted this to happen on iOS. Remember, we ran the app on Android and it didn't look good. We liked the default Android implementation. So what we can do in XAML is use this thing called on-platform. So in on-platform, we can specify on iOS that it should be list. So referencing the shell's back button behavior in our constructor is basically the same thing we do here. We can call out this property here in our content page. And then for the back button behavior, we can say only on iOS do we want to change it to list. So let's go ahead and run this again to see how they look. Okay, so we've got the Android app back up and running. We didn't touch this page and it still looks great. And look at that. We still have our back arrow, our default back button text because we're only overriding it on iOS. So if we run the same code on iOS, you'll see that we have the backwards arrow with the text list. And obviously on Android, it doesn't say anything because we didn't tell it to say anything. If we wanted to, we could say Android equals this text looks bad here. And just for fun, we can see what that looks like. Okay, app looks good again. Again, we didn't touch this page, so it should look great. Oh, and look at that. The back arrow changed to this to, and then it ran out of space. So that's how we can do it. If you want to do things specific for a specific platform in XAML, we can take advantage of on-platform. There's also, I'll just write some quick and dirty code that, fun fact, that's how you do a comment in XAML. So it's not 2 slashes like C#. It's open angle bracket, exclamation point, dash dash, because of course it is. But instead of on platform, we could also say on idiom. And this is another cool one. So we could say, like, if you're on a phone, maybe it says list, but if you're on a tablet, it says this text looks bad here because we know we have more screen real estate. So you can do platform specific, you can do idiom specific, whether it's a phone, tablet, or desktop. that also works too. But let's keep this code in here. We know our details page looks good now. So let's do it all over again for our list page. And just like last time, we're going to rename the list page file. So list page C#. And again, we're just doing this so that the new XAML we're about to create can use the original class name. And that way we don't get any red squiggles in appshell.cs or mauiprogram.cs. So again, add new content page. We're going to call it list page. And we're going to remember from last time that assumptions are made, meaning JetBrains, when I say create a new content page for me, assumes I want to use the namespace pages when really I don't. So let's change that back to list page. And just like last time, let's create that new XML namespace called Hello Maui. So that'll be our hello, or allow us to reference everything in the Hello Maui namespace. Because after we do that, we can say this is actually a base page or base content page. JetBrains gives me this value right here, X type arguments. And again, this is just because base page or base content page takes in one type, one generic type. So in XAML, this is how we tell it what that generic type is. But again, we need another XML namespace called view models because our view models live in a different namespace called hello Maui.view models. And now we can tell it that no worries, we're going to be using our list view model. And then I'm going to also say that this is our data type because it is. All right. Let's see. Ooh, we got some @theme color bindings. That's right. I forgot we did that for light mode versus dark mode. I tell you what, let's make the content first, and then let's come back and do the colors. So ignoring the colors, we're going to say we have a refresh view. And inside that refresh view is a collection view. That looks good. And let's see, this collection view is going to have a header. That header is kind of complicated. So let's break that out into collection view dot header. What I meant by that was, if the header just was something easy, like this, we could do something like that. But our header is going to be a search bar, and you'll see in a second how this code ends up expanding. So we can't really jam it in there without separating it out by calling out collection view.header and putting in the search bar here. All right, so we got a lot of things going on in this search bar. Holy cow. First things first, we got a placeholder. Placeholder should be search titles. We also have an @theme color binding, which, like I said, I'm just going to ignore that for now because we can circle back and add in all the fun colors. So horizontal, vertical, and then horizontal text alignment's going to be center. Vertical text alignment's got to be center. And then we have a behavior. Okay, so we'll need to break out the close tag. So here, we'll say behaviors. And this is where we'll add the behavior. But the user stop typing behavior actually lives in the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. So there's something we need to add. And let me look that up real quick, because even though I wrote the Community Toolkit, I never use XAML, and I don't have that memorized. So let's see. There it is. Okay. So we need to add the toolkit's namespace, which is kind of cool because we made it like this. So it looks like a URL. And so now you can just say toolkit : So now we can just say toolkit : and not expander. You don't need to help me that much in IntelliSense. There we go. User stop typing behavior. And we know this user stop typing behavior is going to have a stop typing time threshold of 100. And it's going to say should dismiss keyboard automatically true. And we want to reference the same binding. So how do we pass in that view model in XAML? Well, let's see. The binding context. Let's do this. Let's do a binding to binding context. And let's say that the source is going to be, let's give this search bar a name. So the name of the search bar will be search bar. And, so this is the squiggles here because of that X data type. So I told it that the X data type for this whole content page is the list view model. So right now it's searching list view model for a property called binding text. But what I should do is tell it that the X data type of this behavior is we're actually binding to search bar. Boop. Let's see. We got some yellow squiggles now. Okay. We're going to let this fly. I think it's fine. We'll find out when we run the code. But yeah, again, here in the behavior, we have to pass in the same view model. But we don't really get that luxury here in XAML. So what I've done is I've given a name to the search bar, and then I've told it that this behavior will actually have a binding that points to the search bar's binding context. So the source of this binding is search bar. And I said, anytime that the binding context of the search bar changes, set that here. So we should be good to go. We'll find out when we run the code in just a minute. Let's see. The other thing we need to do is bind the command here. So this binding, now this is why I'm getting yelled at, because what we're going to do is bind it to user stop typing command. And this X data type is going to be all sorts of thrown off. Interesting. Interesting that it sees that the path here is list view model, but not here. Okay, let's push forward. We can fix that at runtime. But we got our behaviors implemented. We need a gesture. So search bar dot gesture recognizers. And we're going to add a tap gesture recognizer. And the tap gesture recognizer should have a command. There we go. And we're just going to bind this command to, oh, actually, that's right. We're not binding this. We put an inline method. So we're going to have to say that instead of using commands, since we're not binding to a view model, I believe there's also an event. Yep, there it is, event tapped. So we'll say handle search bar. I'll say double tapped because the other property we want to add here in XAML is number of taps required, 2. So again, in XAML, it's all strings. So tapped equals, and then we pass in the string name for handle search bar double tapped. What this means is we have to come here and create that event handler. So object sender, event args, e, and we can copy paste this code, at least some of it. There we go. That looks good. Make that an async void. Bring in the community toolkit namespaces. And don't forget to change the namespace here. And while we're here, this is base content page of type list view model. That needs to be passed into our base class. All right. So got rid of some red squiggles.